Hi and welcome back. In the first video, we created a blank project. Before we get started making music, let's look at some basic settings to make sure that your system is configured properly. An audio interface is required to get sound into and out of your computer, and a MIDI interface is needed to send out and receive MIDI data. So let's make sure these things are hooked up properly. Depending on your computer, audio interfaces will be connected either by FireWire, USB, or a PCI Express card for laptops. If you have no audio interface, you can use the built-in audio ins and outs on your Mac. They'll do the job of converting the sound coming into your computer to digital format and then converting them again going back out to analog. MIDI keyboards and modules are generally connected either through a MIDI interface, which is a separate little box, or on more modern equipment directly via USB. Now, these devices that are connected to your computer may need special drivers, and you can get those from the manufacturer's websites. They need these drivers in order to be seen and recognized by the Mac. You can verify that your outboard peripherals are recognized by looking in the Mac OS Audio MIDI Setup utility. Let's look at that for a moment. I'm going to hit Command-H to hide Logic. And back in the Finder now, and you'll see we're in the Finder up here in the menu bar, you can hit Command-Shift-U to open up your Utilities folder. And once in there, I'm going to type in Audio, and there it'll jump to Audio MIDI Setup. So let me open that, and we'll see here there's two panes, one for audio devices and one for MIDI devices. Now I have a Motu 828 Mark II connected to my system, and I can see that it's recognized here. And in this flip menu, you'll see all the available audio devices connected to your computer. I have a DigiDesign MBox. This is a software routing device that'll route between applications. And then there's the built-in sound and my Motu device. And in the MIDI pane, you can see here the devices hooked up via MIDI or USB to your keyboard. And I have a MIDI MT4 interface. And I also have one on my 828 Mark II for receiving and sending MIDI data. So if your devices aren't showing up here, check with the manufacturer's websites and make sure you have the latest drivers installed, because if they're not showing up here, they won't show up in Logic. All right, let's close this, and I'm going to hit Command-Tab to cycle back through my open applications and go to Logic, and we're back in here. The next step is to set Logic up to see these devices. So you can do this from the Audio Devices Preferences, and there are several ways to get to it. You can click on the Preferences button in the toolbar here, and you get a flip menu of the different available submenus of preferences. We can go to Audio. That's where we want to go to. Or you can get to it from under the Logic menu, Preferences, Audio there. Or you can get to it by key commands. We'll be talking a lot about key commands throughout these videos. They're a great way to speed up your workflow and fly through the program. For now, though, let's make sure that the device is recognized and enabled within Logic. So you want to go to the Devices tab, which is the first one here, and Core Audio, which is the device driver that's used for all audio interfaces other than DigiDesign Pro Tools DAE-based hardware. So you go to Core Audio, and then in the device menu here, the flip menu, this is where you choose which device Logic is going to use, and you'll see here the same choices that we saw in the Audio MIDI setup. So I have my Motu 828 Mark II assigned here. That's the one that Logic's going to be using, so verify that your hardware is assigned correctly within Logic, and if you need to make a change, if you need to change it to something else, you go to Apply Changes here, and that'll change the driver. So I'm going to go back to there, and I'll hit that even though there's no real changes. And it's doing it, and there it is. And the act of toggling it set the input device correctly in this process. Now, as far as MIDI, there's no program-wide settings to make on the preferences level, but we can check in the transport bar here to see that MIDI is being received. I have my MIDI keyboard controller hooked up through my MT4 interface, so when I hit my keyboard, I see the activity here in the meter. So that verifies that MIDI is getting in, and nothing's getting out because it's not routed to a MIDI track currently, but that's working fine. So that's it for this video. It was a quick little video. I just wanted to make sure you understand how the audio and MIDI hardware needs to be set up. Just to review, we have audio interfaces to get audio in and out of the computer, and MIDI interfaces to get MIDI data in and out of the computer. And the devices need to have drivers that are recognized at the Mac OS level from within the Audio MIDI utility setup in the utility folder. And then once back in Logic, in the audio preferences, you need to make sure that your audio device is recognized and set to be the device that's being used at the preference level there. So that's it for now. Stay tuned. See you for more next time.